Jesse Temple is here. Badger Connect. You hear him on the camp with Zach. They've been on a heater the last couple of weeks as we power forward to their season opener tomorrow night. And Jesse, we need this opener because I'm excited about college football and we're all excited for the games to be back. But I can really tell because Zach sent me a bunch of sound bites from Luke Fickell on Monday. There's probably 24 of them here. And a lot of them are an answer along the lines of, we feel really good about this, but we got to go out and prove it. Like that's half of the answers in this press conference. So I think it's time that we, yes, get this team out on the field and actually see some of these things that we've been talking about and that Luke Fickell's been, getting questions about for so long now.
Yes, after 2 seasons of 500 to sub 500 play, I think certainly he's done with talking season. He was done with it a while ago, and he recognizes that it doesn't really matter what you say because all that matters are those 12 regular season games to show you're making progress. But of course, every year is critical, every game is critical, and it's an indictment on where the program stands. But that's why college football is so fun. And this opener is just yet another marker for where is Wisconsin football.
So a couple of sound bites from Luke Fickell that I want to play for Monday. Both are actually dealing with the running back position. And I'll play you this one first. It's only about 20 seconds. You were there. I know you've heard it, but for members and listeners, members of our audience who hadn't heard this, he said something that struck me. He said that having a stud running back kind of gives the team a certain energy and a different vibe, and it's something that they've been lacking. So here's Luke Fickell, and then I want your response to this.
As you look a little bit at through 2 years is when you've got somebody that can create some things, create energy, be dynamic, I think like we had with Braylon in year one, it gives you a different vibe. I hope and believe that that's what we've got in that room. And I'm not just saying Darian Dill. I think Cade Giacomelli is another guy that just can give us some difference. But they got to go out and prove it.
Have you seen that to be true in your tenure of covering the Badgers? You've seen a lot of stud running backs. Do they make a difference like Luke Fickell's talking about there?
He would be accurate. We've all been spoiled for so long, and the 2010s are a nice indicator of it because every year they had somebody special. Yeah, Wisconsin had NFL bodies all over, and you can't discredit the offensive line and how many exceptional linemen there were. And you also need a running back who can make you right even when you were wrong. And Wisconsin had that. Monte Ball, James White, Melvin Gordon, certainly, Jonathan Taylor. They just have not had that consistent caliber of running back necessarily since then. And Braylon Allen battled injuries, but he's an NFL caliber running back. So do they have it this year? Who knows, man? Dylan Jones is presumably your number one, but he's carried 16 times as a college football player. Darian Dupree was a backup late last season, has not carried more than 11 times in a game. And Cade Giacomelli didn't receive a touch in the last 5 games of last season. So I like the potential of both Darian and Dylan and certainly think Cade can help them. But Luke is right because another thing he mentioned was basically this offense is going to go as far as the running back room can take them. And I felt that way certainly before he said it, but I don't know what the answer is. And that's what we're going to find out because if you build an offense around physicality and establishing the run, you darn well better have running backs that can take advantage of those opportunities.
So that was the next thing on my list. I wanted to ask you about that comment because I think on some level we agree because I think we all believe that those running backs can be some of their best or their most kind of star-studded players when you look up and down the roster. So I want extended thoughts on the idea that running backs are going to decide how good they can be, and then maybe some other position groups that could be a bit of a bellwether or a decider of their floor and their ceiling this year.
Well, think about how many times the running backs are going to touch the ball this season, presumably in Jeff Grimes' offense. Kansas a year ago under Grimes averaged about 25 passes per game. So you're going to be running the ball a lot. Now, what is the distribution of carries between those 3 guys? Remains to be seen. Maybe it's a feeling out process early in the year where you're using all 3 and end up using 2. But either way, of course, I could pick a wide receiver, but how many times are those guys actually going to touch the ball in a game? Your leading receiver could have 5 catches or something like that. So absolutely. And of course, that leads to the offensive line needing to be really good. At least you've got 3 returning starters that you can lean on. But yeah, those running backs, they're going to make this offense go.
How big is Jake Renfro going to be for this team this year? I know Fickell was asked about that on Monday too.
Huge. He's obviously a multi-year starter, started at Cincinnati on that playoff team and then battled injuries for a couple of years. It was looking dicey for a few hours in fall camp because he said he got rolled up on, and there were about 8 hours where he was kind of scared because he needed to get tests and find out, but he missed 8 days is what he said. And he's practiced for the last week plus now. It was a challenge. midway through fall camp in the open practices because Renfro, your starting center, was hurt. Kerry Kadinko, your backup center, was hurt. So they really had their number 3, Ryan Corey, a second-year player, working with the first team group. And then your reserves were guys who just, I don't know if they've ever snapped before, but you need guys to get reps. But Renfro is the quarterback of that offensive line. He's tremendously intelligent, super positive guy. Zach and I talked about this on the camp, but if there's anybody who could speak something into existence, I feel like it's Jake Renfro. But obviously, with the difficulty and the complexity of this offense, you need that center quarterback combination to be really strong. And they have that with Jake Renfro and Billy Edwards Jr.
And you saw Billy Edwards Jr. even working with the 2s or the 3s at center and on that O-line kind of build and grow and kind of solidify that offense over the course of fall camp, you think?
You're saying Billy Edwards Jr. working with the 2s and 3s.
Well, the backup center, I mean, the second or third center that you were talking about without Renfro. You still were able to see him kind of build that chemistry and set protections and do all of those things. That wasn't a huge hindrance in camp, like you were saying?
No, I wouldn't say so. I mean, by that point, Billy had a knee brace on. He had banged knees. He's fine now. He says he may have to wear the brace, but he's comfortable with it. It's not like I saw any issues, but they weren't obviously going with all the bullets flying.
Jesse Temple is here, Badger Connect, and like you just heard him reference as well, he's on the Camp with Zach, an excellent Badger podcast. Fickell was asked about the size and the length along the defensive front and how he thinks it's improved, and that's borne out in the numbers, but we heard that from him personally on Monday. Let's just say, sorry to be all negative, but let's say we get the same result this year and they get trampled by really physical teams right along that defensive front. Like, at that point, does it become more of a question of Fickell and Tressel's scheme, the way they're building it up, less so of a front with a lot of players that are just smaller? Because when I heard that answer, that's where I went. It's like, okay, well, if you're bigger this year, what if it still doesn't work? Like, then what's the next thing? That was kind of my thought.
If we get to that point, you best be making some changes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what else to say to that. Like, I can't project what December is going to look like, but I think at that time, assuming Luke gets another year, if things don't go well, and I would expect you get a 4th year just based on the financial ramifications and the time to build your program, you might have to start evaluating whether your staff is right for you. But they have made notable changes. And if we're looking toward the positive, and we ought to be because the season hasn't started yet, I think they've done everything in their power to make the changes they felt were necessary to help get Wisconsin back to a higher level. I'm not going to say the level that is expected because I don't believe this is a championship team given the schedule. But defensive line wise, you look at their 2 deep, or at least the depth chart that was released, and interior D line lists 6 players. They're all separated by or, but that's because all 6 are going to play. Those 6 average 316 pounds. The top 6 a year ago averaged 295 pounds. So that's a considerable difference. Will it matter in the games? I mean, they certainly hope so, but you need those edge rushers. You need those linebackers. You need that front 7 to be a heck of a lot better because you can't get stomped the way you did toward the end of last season.
And it's not just personnel. You wrote about some of the tweaks that Tressel made over at Badger Connect. Talk a little bit about that schematically, maybe ways we should feel a little bit better about that defensive front this year.
Well, schematically, of course, it helps getting more physical and having more bodies because Ben Barton, one of the team's returning defensive linemen, was talking to me last night about last year. It felt like at the end of the year we had 4 D linemen, and so it was always there were 2 on the field and there were 2 getting ready to go in. And this year it's going to be so much different because you can have 2 on the field, 2 getting ready to go in, and 2 who can be completely rested and don't even have to think about going in. We'll see whether that materializes, but they've got different body types off the edge, which is very different because they brought in transfers who are 300 pounds, 297 pounds, Michael Garner and Corey Walker, and those guys can be edge players. They can also line up with their hand in the ground, but then you've got your typical fast 255-pound explosive athletic guys off the edge. I want to sort of reserve judgment on that because a year ago we thought Wisconsin had it and they gave them bupkis, basically. Team ranked last in tackles for loss. But some of the other changes, I thought it was interesting. Players were talking about how Luke Fickell was giving presentations to the group during the offseason and into fall camp, some of which were advanced statistics on things like, here's what happens if as a defense you give up 2 explosive plays. And I found some advanced stats that went back the last 5 years, and it's astonishing, even though it shouldn't be. Like, if you give up two defensive explosive plays of 20 plus yards, your winning percentage is 47%. And if you're a defense and you give up just 1 or 0, your winning percentage is like 83%. But it was stuff like that that I think helped provide context for these players. But there were things that aren't even advanced stats, like red zone defensive percentage. You gave up a touchdown 62% of the time. Games where you lost the rushing battle. So there are some things that are basic, but I think he just wanted to hammer home these things are important. And then the other thing that's sort of difficult to measure, much like when we talk about a team's culture, is mindset and attitude. But we hear about it all the time and have spent all offseason listening to the coaches and the players talk about it. They feel like they've got a different mindset. I remember Mike Tressel talking the day before fall camp began about how last year it felt like basically people on defense were trying to hold on for dear life, which, I mean, by the end of year 2, you certainly don't want that. But the approach and the attitude is different. And one thing he talked about a couple of weeks ago is if they defense gives up an 8-yard play, there's not necessarily sort of a defeated attitude. It's like we get one good play here and we're back in charge of the series. So this is all talk. It's all nice to discuss right now on a radio program, but talking season is over. It's time to shut up and go play.
As we've heard Luke Fickell say, give me, I'm not going to look at it pessimistic. I'm not going to ask what kind of challenges Miami, Ohio presents. What kind of opportunities do they present for the Badgers tomorrow night, Jesse?
First of all, an opportunity to prove that Wisconsin can return to some of those old school roots, the physical smash mouth nature. Go out and smash them from the start then, because, and this is what I'm writing about for a story that's running Thursday that previews the game, but what happened last year in the opener? They were losing by a point to Western Michigan 45 seconds into the fourth quarter. You got to give people some optimism and maybe even the team some confidence that you can roll out here in the first half and establish a lead and not be locked in a one possession game in the third quarter. I really do think that matters. There's going to be very few games on the schedule this year where Wisconsin is a heavy favorite. The Badgers are 17.5-point favorites. And then consistency offensively, no pre-snap penalties, no stupid turnovers. And defensively, can you start to control the trenches? And they will be challenged because DeQuan Finn, the quarterback at Miami, Ohio, was actually a player that Wisconsin brought to campus 2 off seasons ago to potentially be that next transfer portal quarterback. Wisconsin ended up getting Tyler Van Dyke, but he was an exceptional player when he was at Toledo. Last year, he transferred to Baylor and got injured, didn't have a great year, but he's got an opportunity to thrive as a 7th-year player. I said that, 7th year at Miami, Ohio. So we'll see if Wisconsin can contain him.
Badger Connect, subscribe to his work and check him out on the camp with Zach as well. It's a big week with football returning to Madison. So we'll look forward to all your coverage and your breakdown of everything that we're seeing, Jesse. Thanks for the time.
Thanks, Grant.